Okay, hi. This is Sandra M. Urquhart, and I'm going to do a short video here, excuse me, to explain something that I think a lot of people don't really understand concerning getting a natural health type treatment especially when you're injured. I work for a PFP place, which will remain nameless because my company has already told me that if I uh, if any of us put them in our social media, then they will become involved in what we're doing and want to regulate it or whatever. And I'm not going for that. I don't, um, I'm sure they are checking and following us as it stands, but I don't want to discuss the company that I work for. However, I will say this. I've noticed as I'm working for them, and I've worked with other PIP companies before and other places that do rehabilitation, and I've noticed that a lot of clients follow the same sort of thing, unfortunately, and it's just due, I think, in large part to a lack of education. There was a young lady that came in recently, and she had a severe back injury. And instead of following through with the protocol that the doctors gave her, she did this thing where she tried, this for a few weeks, and then she tried something else for a few weeks, and she tried something else for a few weeks, and she just was just jumping all over the place. And she was saying nothing was working. Well, nothing works overnight. Nothing works in a super short time span, especially when you're having to recover from an injury. It's not quick, and it depends on the scope of the injury, how fast or how slow your recovery is going to be. And then it also depends in some part on your lifestyle, some part on your thoughts. So, even your eating habits could have a part in that, But this young lady was all over the place, very impatient, and expected results immediately. And I understand, she was in pain, she was suffering, and she wanted to be out of pain quickly. But there's no fast fixes like that. So, I mean, if you're suffering from a pain problem, you got to understand that in most cases it didn't happen overnight. I mean, here's a real, I'm gonna call it a gold mine thought, because people do not consider this at all. But when you have an injury, the level of your injury is oftentimes dictated by the condition of your muscles and your body prior to whatever accident or injury you had. So, especially when we're talking about an injury involving an impact situation, the impact is affecting your body, it's affecting your muscles, it's affecting whatever condition they are already in. So if they're not in good condition, if they're too weak, or if they're too tight and restricted, that is going to dictate the level of injury that you end up sustaining. So this young lady had a very bad fall, and I can tell you that as a person who is gifted on reading pain patterns, she had an imbalance. In fact, several. And like most of us, we all have imbalances, but we often are unaware of the imbalances, and we're unaware of where they're coming from. She had a particular type of imbalance, and the imbalance put greater strain on her low back. Let's put it that way. And I'm going to be breaking down, explaining these kind of imbalances later, but I'm just going to say this. One of the things that I explained a few things to her, but one of the things that I want to stress to you guys is this. If you are in pain, especially with low back, well, first of all, let me say this. There are a lot of young ladies, and even some men, although they often are not straight men, but there are people out there that are getting all these physical enhancements. And oftentimes, the women who are getting the most exaggerated physical enhancements already have an exaggerated imbalance that potentially would cause pain. So let me just put it this way. The ones who are getting the boob jobs and getting particularly some sort of filler or additions onto their booty are putting themselves in position. They're positioning themselves for a great deal of pain. There are people who have a particular imbalance that causes certain conditions. And these imbalances are due in part, in large part, in fact, mostly due from problematic gait and problematic footwear. And I'll go into this in depth later, but what I had to tell this young lady was that her number one problem that might have been continuing to make her feel like she was in pain as she was jumping around from treatment to treatment is the fact that she's walking around with very imbalanced shoes. And her shoes were worn, number one. And I mean, if you see wearing on the sides of your shoes, the soles are worn out in any way, that's one problem. But many of the shoes that are made in this day and age are not balanced shoes at all. They're not balanced. They're made for fashion. They're made to look cute, but they're not made to help you walk with balance. So you have to be mindful about that. Many of the people who need the most support walk around with the worst shoes. Flip-flops. Let me just say, flip-flops are aptly named because they flip and flop your foot all over the place without any sort of balance whatsoever. And even though they may feel comfortable to you, to your muscles, they're jacking you up. They've got your muscles working harder in some areas and not as hard in others. And that excessive work comes right up the line. It's traveling upward from your feet. It's hitting all the muscles in your legs. It's hitting the hips, and then it's hitting the low back. So I'm kind of going into it, but not really going in depth because I don't really have the time right now. I try to make these segments like maybe 10 minutes max. But I explained to her the necessity to get balanced footwear. And the two shoes that I recommend, especially for people who are a little bit more heavy set in particular, are the New Balance or Brooks. These are not super cheap shoes, however, they will keep you in balance. You may need orthotic support with it. And I'm telling you, people, if you don't get this support, the pain is going to be ongoing and inevitable. I mean, aside from the fact that you have to do some form of exercise on a regular basis just to keep moving and keep your muscles from getting too weak, but also, and I will get into those things in depth also later, as I'm going to be doing it, as I need to get myself in better condition and I need to lose weight. So that's something that I'm going to be doing. But you need to keep your muscles strengthened, but at the same time, not overdo it. And you need to keep your muscles stretched. Very, very important. Stay in balance, stay stretched, stay strong. Those are the ones. And I'll talk about it more later. But for right now, I've got to run. I've got to get into my office. It's been very nice talking to you guys. And I hope that your day is really blessed. Take care. Bye.